what you need when you need it. On the Horn. onthehorn.com.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Dave Moore. You're listening to On the Horn, onthehorn.com. You can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. And we're about to start News Talk Tonight. News Talk Tonight is brought to you by Amazon.com, Gateway Financial Partners, Sanders Travel, Shipper Technologies, Budwitz and Meyer Jack, Deepwater Seafood of Avon, and CentralCTDental.com. There we go. Well, tonight we're going to be talking about, a few things. There was a disaster declaration from Storm Nemo. Gun control advocates get aggressive. Our federal senators have been joining the fray relative to that. Khan's early release program scrutinized. Investigation of illegal gambling led to the Donovan probe. Foley criticizes conflict of interest laws and sparks a reaction from his own party. Cross endorsements are under fire by Democratic leadership, and a committee hears testimony on closing sexual assault loopholes. Frankly, I didn't know we had any. We'll find out. Tonight, I am joined by co-host Brian Lee. I'll call you co-host. It's the guest host that gets me. He may be calling in. We may hear from Brian Parker. Who knows? But were you surprised that Storm Nemo created a disaster for Connecticut? There we go.
No, not really.
Yeah, well, apparently it took a while for us to work that out.
To just make the declaration?
Apparently, President Barack Obama has now granted Connecticut's request for a major disaster declaration following the February snowstorm that we know as Storm Nemo.
I thought that had already been taken care of, or was it just by our guys? Nationally?
It was submitted to the feds.
Okay.
The president has now finally signed off. Let's see, it happened in February. It's now almost April.
Right, just in time for tax season.
Yeah. The declaration means that federal funding is now available to state and local governments and certain nonprofit organizations for the emergency work and repair or replacement of facilities damaged by the storm. It also means that, like the extra plowing that they had to do,
yep,
some of the towns will actually get some of that money back.
That's good.
All of the state counties, all of them, we have 8. I know that might come as a shock or surprise to some. We have 8 counties. All of them are covered by this declaration, and the 2 Native American tribes. So they can also get disaster relief. I don't think that they can get lost money from slots.
I was actually gonna ask that. Can they say that we lost money on that?
Yeah, no.
No lost revenue.
Damn. Although it wouldn't surprise me if they tried.
I would.
They're actually hurting for cash, if you can believe it.
I can.
There was another story that was out not too long ago about how the 2 tribes have actually, mostly the Pequots, not so much the Mohegans, but the Pequots have been putting in for federal assistance.
Really?
The whole reason why we gave them licenses was so that they didn't need to do that.
Very interesting. I hadn't heard that. That's amazing.
Yes. Now, one of the things that I didn't mention in the intro that does bear some discussion is the U.S. Supreme Court hearings both today and tomorrow. Today's doesn't really impact Connecticut. I will grant you that.
Okay.
And based on the questions that the justices and their comments to some of the responses indicates that there is a likelihood that they're going to chicken out, at least on today's decision.
Okay.
A couple of justices asked whether or not the defenders of Proposition 8 actually had standing. And the reason why that's actually pertinent is the appropriate personages was the governor of California and the attorney general, both of which refused to support the legislation that is now Proposition 8 that is now up before the justices. So what could likely happen is that the Supreme Court could dismiss the appeal.
Okay.
What does that mean? It means that California's Proposition 8 goes bye-bye.
Yep.
And gays and lesbians would be able to marry in California again.
Again. Yeah.
Yep. And it would mean that the 8 other states that have legalized such activity. Now, let's see if I can remember. Brian is calling in. Brian?
Hello.
Hello there.
There we go.
How are you?
I'm fine. There is a very interesting echo.
There sure is.
Wow.
Wonder why.
I don't.
Oh, you know why?
Why?
It is on your TriCaster, on the Ustream TriCaster,
Yeah.
where you see the levels. Right below that, there's a little headphone icon.
Yep.
You need to press that
Done.
and turn the headphones off.
Got it.
And now
End of
you still
echo.
have the echo.
End of echo. It's a beautiful thing.
That's what I'm here for. Tech support. I'll invoice you later.
We were just talking about the Supreme Court hearing today and tomorrow, and I was noting the fact that today's decision really would not impact Connecticut directly. Tomorrow's would. But it looks like, based on what the justices were asking the council and what their justices' responses to the council's answers were, that it looks like the Supreme Court is going to chicken out. They're not going to take on the broad issue. It looks like they're going to just dismiss the appeal, and that would mean that Proposition 8 bites the dust, which only impacts California. Oh, well.
Yeah, I don't know. I see. I mean, to me, this is really the. Is this the Defense of Marriage Act thing that you guys are talking about?
No, that's tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Today was
That's tomorrow. What was
Proposition.
today?
Today was Proposition 8. That's
Remind me again, Prop 8, and the difference between that and DOMA.
Well, Proposition 8 was a state initiative in California that essentially made gay marriage illegal in California. And,
Okay.
and it won by a 1.5 percentage point. It was then challenged in the U.S. District Court in California. The U.S. District Court found the Proposition 8 was unconstitutional because it violated the Equal Protection Clause. And then the state governor, Brown, shock, surprise, surprise, Jerry Brown, refused to defend Proposition 8 on appeal. And so did the California Attorney General.
It's weird. Obviously, I'm not a lawyer, and I don't know jack really when it comes to law, but I know just enough to be dangerous here.
That's why I'm here, and I'll invoice you.
Yeah. The concept here is odd to me because it's, the state made a law, and they're asking the Supreme Court to rule that unconstitutional, but the law of the land right now is DOMA, right?
That is the statutory law. It's not the case law that we're dealing with. And the case law, in fact, the district court did a really interesting maneuver to avoid having Proposition 8 ruled on through the auspices of DOMA.
Now, does anyone else think it's really weird that California has Proposition 8? I mean, like, of all the states, wouldn't you think that California, a liberal beehive,
The land of fruits and nuts.
and I don't mean that as
In a pejorative way.
disparaging, but just sort of like, all 54 electoral votes or 57 or however many there are, really always go Democrat. You got some of the biggest name Democrats like Nancy Pelosi coming in from California. How the heck does California come up with something like Proposition 8? I don't know.
One of the old jokes that was bandied about in legal circles was California is in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. Whenever a conservative Supreme Court would deal with a California situation, it would invariably start off with this case originated in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. Other reasons for overturning are as follows. That was because the Ninth Circuit was usually a very liberal circuit court and drew the ire of conservatives. So you're right, Brian, the irony that what is a socially conservative position was in fact adopted by one of the most liberal states in the Union. And that's one of the reasons why there is what is called a standing issue now as far as this particular case is concerned, because the parties that would have standing to argue this case would be the governor and the attorney general on behalf of the state of California to defend Proposition 8 and those who were impacted by Proposition 8. Because the governor and the attorney general refused to have anything to do with Proposition 8, there is a standing question, and that is probably going to be the reason why the Supreme Court says, not dismissed. And if they dismiss the appeal, then Proposition 8 goes down because the district court had said it was unconstitutional.
So here's the thing about, I think maybe the deeper issue for gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgendered folks is it's great that I think the states, and I'm all for state rights, to be quite honest with you, but it's great that a lot of states are, like Connecticut, accepting the idea of gay marriage, or maybe sometimes they call them civil unions. I think civil union has gone away, right? Most of it is just called marriage now, or
not entirely. And that's one of the reasons why the DOMA case tomorrow is going to really have a much more profound and broader impact. I'm all for. It doesn't matter to me. The whole concept of defensive marriage, whatever. You guys want to have a 50% divorce rate like us? Great, terrific. Knock yourself out. I don't really care. But my big issue is that we have to have, we really do have to have a federal, a federal law saying that it is okay to have this thing called gay marriage, which I don't even think we should call it gay marriage. I just think we should have it called marriage. So this is and this is one of those great little tricks here. This is a conservative idea that has been bastardized by crazy people everywhere who call themselves Republicans. But really, what you do in your own bedroom does not matter to me. And if you want to marry another guy, then terrific. If you're a guy, you want to marry another guy, or you're a girl, you want to marry another girl, great. Knock yourself out. I don't want to know about it. I'm conservative, and that means I don't need to know about that side of your personal life. Keep that private, please. And if you keep that private, that's great. That's great for me. But I don't like the idea of some states saying yay, some states saying nay, and even in the states that say yay to gay marriage, for lack of a better term, forgive me, folks, people are still not eligible for things like Social Security benefits, or if you're at a hospital where you are getting that hospital gets federal funding, someone could bastardize this and say, hey, you know what, it's family only right now, and you may be married in the state of, say, Connecticut, who would recognize this, but if you get federal funds, who knows? Some crazy attorney general from the Fed might come over here and say, hey, look, they got federal funds, you're not allowed to see your spouse. Or say, you get life insurance policies.
or say you get protection under mandated death benefits of qualified money like 401ks or IRAs. So there's a whole like level here of like, hey, you really got to get up here on like equal playing field. And I think the only way we can do this is to make the federal law pay to these, and I hate using the term, to these gay rights, to gay marriage, which is, again, it's a term that I hate. It goes against my conservative nature to call it gay marriage, but for lack of a better term, it should just be called marriage regardless. But, you know, it's a semantic problem, and I don't really care to talk about semantics.
8 states
So,
plus the district.
that's where the Republicans are. If you want to know where the true Republican conservative position is, that's where it is.
8 states plus the District of Columbia either recognize civil unions or outright marriage. You have 4 states that actually recognize outright marriage: Maine, Connecticut, Washington, and one other. Does not come to mind. The other states recognize...
Is it just a semantic thing between gay marriage and civil union, or is it civil union, or is there actually a difference between civil union and gay marriage?
It would depend on how the civil union statute was actually drafted,
All right.
because there are some states where there is a legal distinction, where you are given some of the benefits of marriage, but not all. And that's why the advocates for change in this particular policy are basically saying what you're saying. Let's call it marriage. Let's give it all the bells and whistles, and let's be done with it.
Okay.
And frankly, I tend to agree that, particularly with the decision from California about how this distinction creates a violation of the equal protection law, because our gay brothers and sisters should have the right to be able to marry just like our heterosexual brothers and sisters, and they should not have a difference in treatment. It should be all one or the other.
Yeah, I mean, boy, there's so many problems with this. I mean, I agree sort of with the spirit of what you're saying. And again, this gets muddied so much for me in the semantics, in that I don't see marriage as a legal right to do something. In fact, I would be all for getting rid of the word marriage and marital deduction and married filing jointly and marry, getting rid of all of that language in our government. Because, again, a conservative principle is ain't none of the goddamn government's business. Ain't none of your business. It is a private matter, and it is a social matter, and if things that the government screws up the most are probably public and social matters, so we shouldn't even call it, like, there shouldn't really, I don't really know how else to describe it other than I don't like the concept of you should have the right to be married. That goes against really sort of the conservative principle, because it shouldn't be something that's a right. I mean, like, who's the government to say if I want to marry a rock? Like, who the hell cares? Like, get away from me. I'm not infringing upon anyone else's rights. You know? I don't know. That's just me.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, and essentially, an individual's right to live one's life as they deem appropriate, as long as they're not infringing on somebody else's rights, that should be it. And that is where true conservative thinking and, quote, liberal thinking actually are married well. Sorry. But
yeah,
really,
I mean,
that's what it boils down to.
This is what happens. This is what happens in politics. I notice more and more, liberal principles and conservative principles sometimes they agree.
Yep.
But gosh darn it, if we agree on stuff, then we can't make the people fight over this, which means we can't raise money over this disagreement. So we have to
Gin it
we
up.
have to make controversy out of places where there is no controversy.
Yep. Speaking of controversy, we're also dealing with the state legislature continuing to do review of comprehensive legislation relative to gun control, which our friends at CT News Junkie have indicated. Well, I certainly heard Christine when she was talking on Jim Vicevich's show last week go wax eloquently about how everything else has more or less come to a stop while they are trying to work their way through the comprehensive legislation revolving around mental health, school safety, and gun control.
This is bad government right here. We should not. I don't think we are all devastated by Newtown, and I don't think. And gosh, I hope this doesn't come out wrong, but I don't think it's appropriate for us to legislate and make new laws and have this. We can certainly have the debate, but don't do it while we're all so emotional. I think we should have kind of taken a 12-month moratorium on this.
Yep. Oh, call remotely held. Let's see if we can bring him back. Yay, nay. Brian, if you're listening, you might have put us on hold. Don't know. But getting back to, now it's gone. Sorry. Okay. Well, good night, Brian. Oh, and we're back. 1 second here, and hello there. Are you there, Brian? Once again, call remotely held.
OnStar. Stupid OnStar.
Yeah, well, the hearing that's going to have the most impact on all of us will be the Defense of Marriage Act hearing tomorrow.
Yep.
That one is going to have much more far-reaching aspects, and you don't have the same procedural issues that you had with today's hearing. And we're on. Can you hear us, Brian?
Yeah, so that's interesting. I got 7% battery in my phone, so I thought I'd plug it in.
Yeah.
But when I plug it in, it activates iTunes, and all of a sudden I had AC Strut by Debbie Davies blasting through the car, and I'm like, oh God!
Nice choice.
Meanwhile, on our end, it said call remotely held, and there was nothing that I could do about it.
That's good. So you guys didn't hear me curse?
No. We missed that.
Because I said, what the fudge stick?
Or words to that effect.
Or something like that.
Or something of that general nature.
Yes.
So I was saying, in a most uneloquent way, we should have taken a 12-month little moratorium here, and kind of heal our wounds emotionally, because now I feel, and I wrote a couple pieces about this on our website, that there's such a desire to do something that we're getting bad law, and I don't think that's a good thing. And one of the big criminals here, I think, is Best Buy of West Hartford, who was just like looking to cash in on all sorts of stuff. I mean, she was like almost immediately throwing out legislation before like the autopsy had even been done. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? So I don't like that. And I like the fact that Christine said, hey, look, I don't really know if this is good that we've all stopped legislating, with the exception of dealing with the Newtown tragedies and gun control.
Well, there are other hearings that are being held while all of this is going on, but in talking with my state legislator and in having an electronic conversation with Christine, it's pretty obvious that the real active there may be hearings going on, but the active legislation is tied up with the gun control issue. And that's not going to change until they have actually passed something, which means that our budget gets to be put on hold, which means that certain other things that we kind of sort of need to work our way through sooner rather than later all get put on hold. And I can understand the need, the desire to respond to the tragedy in a meaningful way, whether or not the legislation that's going to come out ultimately is meaningful or, in fact, a real response is really kind of up in the air, because the negotiations continue even as we speak.
Yeah.
Right now, apparently, the sticking point is the high-capacity magazines. And the question is whether or not you make them all illegal, and therefore everybody who actually has them now would have to turn them in, or whether
That's not going to happen.
or whether you make it so that
It's grandfathered in somehow.
right. But the problem there is you don't know enforcement.
No one knows who has those high capacity.
That's the
Like-
problem.
And you can sell them to whoever you want.
That's the other problem.
And I mean, and honestly, I've talked. I'm a gun owner. I have a pistol permit. I got lots of stuff. I've sold a gun. I've just sold my 223 Bushmaster rifle, which was that was the weapon.
Right.
Which is a huge demand right now. Now, did I sell it to make a profit? No. In fact, I did not sell it to make a profit. In fact, I sold it at a steep discount because I just wanted to get rid of it because I thought it was bad karma. And I gave away my 30-round capacity banana clip. It's bad karma. I don't need it. I gave away all my 223 ammo. It's bad karma for me to have it. That's personal choice.
Right.
But I don't have to tell anyone who I sold those to. And I'm that's not the big issue. To me, the big issue is you go to a gun show, there's no background check. But if you go to Dick's Sporting Goods
Yep.
and want to buy a shotgun, there is a 2-week waiting period and a background check.
Yep.
You want to buy a pistol? You got to get a background check, plus you got to get a pistol permit. In Connecticut, we happen to call it a concealed weapon permit, but it's a pistol permit.
Yep.
I don't understand I don't understand what the loophole is of why people can go and buy guns without background checks at gun shows. I don't get it. Like, why? You can't do that anywhere else. And I have to imagine the gun store owners who abide by a ton of regulation have got to be annoyed at that. Like, how come I got to go through all the hoops and hassle to move product, but these guys can kind of just like whisk into town, throw a bunch of ammo and a bunch of weapons into the public and whisk out of here, and I'm here filling out paperwork until my eyes start to bleed.
That's
actually
a great question,
If I was
Brian.
a gun store owner.
And unless the gun store participates in the gun show, and there's nothing that prevents them from doing that, there is a great disparity. And there again is an equal protection question, because you're treating one segment of the population differently from another.
Mm-hmm.
And that generally is considered to be a constitutional no-no. Particularly when
I got to run, guys, but it's
All
a
right.
great discussion. Keep it going.
Thank you, sir. Have a good
Okay.
night.
Bye-bye.
Well, the other problem that the state legislature is dealing with relative to this issue is that our state senators have now waded in. That would be Senators Richard Blumenthal and Chris Murphy. Yesterday, basically challenged the legislature to come up with effective and meaningful legislation sooner rather than later. And the real riff, if you will, that was being touted by both senators was that Connecticut's ability to act swiftly on comprehensive gun control could affect national policy, and the inability to act could send the wrong message. Gun control will be tackled by the U.S. Senate when it returns from its spring recess. Who else gets recess? The elementary school does.
Exactly.
Yes. But there is an indication already of resistance in the U.S. Senate. Apparently, 3 senators have sent to Majority Leader Harry Reid a letter, one of them being Rand Paul, indicating that they will filibuster any gun legislation at all. So that would require the 60 vote, etc.
Right.
So that is going to prove to be interesting. And what you're going to see essentially is whether or not the NRA still has its chops. And I have a feeling that the main reason why you have Senators Murphy and Blumenthal pushing the state legislature is for that very reason. Because they want Connecticut, the poster child of gun violence,
To be out front.
to be out there with Colorado, with New York, to basically say enough. But, there's a whole slew of questions. For instance, current owners of magazines, do they become former owners of magazines? If they do they get compensated? Because something that they bought legally is now all of a sudden illegal.
I don't know that they can ever make them illegal for people who have already owned them at this point.
But the
really
problem
hard.
comes with enforcement.
Exactly, like Brian said, who knows who's got them?
Right.
So you can't possibly go house to house and say, bust out the weapons and let me check your mags. That's not going to happen. So let's be honest about this. You ignore that part. Just no more of it from here on in. If that's the decision, and honestly, how many freaking rounds do you need?
A couple.
How many do you need? Look, I have no problem with wanting to go off and blow off some steam, shoot a few targets, whatever you want to do. That's fine. And it's not for me. That doesn't mean it's not for you. Whatever. That's all good. Do whatever makes you happy, as long as it doesn't mess with me.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Or interfere with somebody else's ability to, I don't know, live.
Breathe. Yeah.
Well, we're going to take a short break here because God knows we have to pay some bills. But we will be back, and when we come back, we will be talking about, among other things, the early release program that was passed back in 2011 come under some scrutiny as a result of at least one guy getting out early and killing a Meriden shop bodega owner, basically.
Okay.
We're also going to be talking a little bit about how there was always some question as to how the Donovan probe actually started.
Mm-hmm.
We think we know now.
Oh, good.
So we can
This'll be
talk a
fun.
little bit about that. And then Foley critiques conflict of interest laws and gets a very strong reaction from his own party. Gee, the man who would be governor lost it by 5,600 votes, already pissing off his own party. Gotta love that. We'll be back shortly, folks.
Fresh, organic, and homegrown. On the Horn. OnTheHorn.com.
Budwitz and Meyerjack PC is a large Connecticut-based CPA firm with offices in Cheshire and Farmington, Connecticut. Large enough to handle engagements of enterprises with annual revenues in excess of $100 million, yet small enough to cater to smaller businesses and individual clients who expect personalized attention from partners and staff. Client service is the cornerstone of our practice. Our clients have a fixed fee for their audit and tax work. What this means to the client is we're approachable. Personal communication and client services make for strong relationships. Budwitz and Meyerjack, certified public accountants.
Sandits Travel for business and leisure. We'll take you there. Sandits Travel has been proudly serving Connecticut since 1960. That's over 50 years. And we're ready for another 50 years of superior service. Whether you prefer to come in, call in, or log on, we invite you to explore how efficient, diverse, and fun it is to book through Sandits Travel. Save your money and your time with us. Sandits Travel. We'll take you there.
Click, load, listen on the horn. onthehorn.com.
News Talk Tonight is also brought to you by Deepwater Seafood of Avon. Have you been to the only fish market in Farmington Valley? Deepwater is located on Route 44 and is open 6 days a week, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 6:30 p.m., and Saturdays, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. One of the best things about Deepwater is their fish are fresh. 3 deliveries daily to meet your needs. Deepwater has a menu of grilled fish items, scampi, fish and chips, soups, bisques, and chowders. For your catering needs, authentic paella, cedar plank salmon sides, and always the traditional New England. That's easy for me to say. The traditional New England clam bake. Deepwater also has the very best shrimp cocktail. I had some this weekend. It was awesome. Just the right amount of horseradish. You know, it's all good. It's the best that you'll find anywhere. Call in your order at 860-676-9657, and they'll have your order ready for pickup when you arrive. Deepwater Seafood of Avon, not just for the halibut. And we're also brought to you by CentralCTDental.com. Doctors Camp, Sambor, and Lupini for serious issues or routine checkups. Go nowhere else. Easy to get to on the Plainville-Farmington line. Call 860-747-5671 or make an appointment online at CentralCTDental.com. Well, having paid the bills, it's a wonderful thing. The convicts early release program scrutinized. Mm-hmm. And what was interesting was the former chair of the Judiciary Committee, co-chair, I should say, Mike Lawler, was testifying in front of the, which commission? It was the Judiciary Committee. They were having a hearing. It was an informational hearing on the early release program that's run by the Department of Corrections. That program has received a fair amount of praise and some critique, primarily from Republicans.
Okay.
The Risk Reduction Credit Program was passed by the legislature in 2011, allowing the department to award an inmate's credit that can reduce their prison sentence by a maximum of 5 days a month. According to Governor Daniel P. Malloy's administration, credits are earned by participating in programs designed to ease inmates' transitions back into society and reduce the likelihood of recidivism. There we go. Say that 3 times real fast.
No, thank you.
The program has become controversial after an early release convict robbed a convenience store and killed the owner. And unfortunately for all concerned, it was caught on video.
Nah.
And it was pretty brutal. And I remember seeing the arraignment of this guy. If there was ever someone who probably should be locked up for the rest of his natural life, he's it.
Really? Okay.
I mean, he was glaring all around, and he was making faces at the victim's family. And when a marshal basically told him to tone it down, he started to act like he was going to jump ugly with the marshal.
Tase him.
Yeah. I wouldn't have had a problem with that.
Tase him.
Yep. Legislative Republicans are now calling for the program's end. Undersecretary for Criminal Justice Policy Michael Lawler attended Friday's hearing and argued that violent offenders have not been released earlier under this program than they had under previous correction department policies. There is a bill that hasn't passed yet that may be pending again that would force violent offenders to actually serve 85% of their sentence, period. No
Okay.
ifs, no ands, no buts. And Lawler pointed out that Governor Malloy supports that particular legislation and called upon them to actually pass the bill.
Really?
What is now pending is a proposal by the Republicans to end the early release credit program because of what happened in Meriden.
Okay. Is this the first, or is this the only that we know of, like, major crime that came out of this early release program?
It's the only one that we're aware of.
Okay.
Now, when you think about it, it basically, the law was passed in 2011.
Mm-hmm.
The robbery and murder took place in 2012.
Right.
May thereof.
Right.
So there wasn't a whole lot of time gone by.
How many criminals have gotten, or former criminals, however you want to put it, have gotten early releases?
Lots of them.
Yeah.
And frankly, programs that are set up to help ease them back into the stream of society,
Mhm.
I think are a good thing.
Sure.
Because you don't want to. Do you remember? Was it? No, it wasn't Shawshank.
You don't want guys institutionalized, like that mentality. You have to be here. This is all I know.
Right.
You know, if you spend 25 years in a 6 foot by 8 foot box, that's all you know. You know when the whistle blows for chow. You know when the whistle blows for lights out.
Yep.
You know, you're so regimented, you can never get back mentally into society.
Think about this. It was a famous movie scene. Can't think of the movie right now.
Mhm.
But this guy is dressed in clothing that is 20 years
Out of date,
beyond
yeah.
out of date. Okay. He's given $45. That's the money that he had when he was popped.
Yep.
Okay. His watch and a pair of glasses, and you see him being let out, and then the doors are shut. And all of a sudden, he's saying to himself,
What the hell do I do now?
yeah,
what do I do now?
Right. It's ridiculous. And to expect folks who have been, as you have pointed out eloquently, been living a regimented life
Yeah.
for a long period of time, the changes in society are such that every 5 years we have something completely new and completely different.
Mm-hmm.
These folks have nothing to acclimate themselves.
Nope.
So why don't we set up programs that allow that to happen?
Agreed.
And it's not just halfway houses. It's got to be something that starts while they're still incarcerated. While I have your attention, Bob, this is what we're going to do. So, yeah, can the system make a mistake from time to time?
Of course. But
Yes.
the system makes mistakes all the time, not just in this case. You know, it makes mistakes all the time.
Now, here's an instance where the system, so to speak, didn't make a mistake. A federal investigation into an unlawful, in quotes, gambling operation by a Waterbury smoke shop owner is the likely suspect as to what generated an investigation that led into the arrests that toppled former State House Speaker Chris Donovan and ended his hopes to win a congressional seat. Found in the sentencing documents of David Buffalo Maffa, a retired corrections officer, and if you see the picture of this guy, he is a very large man.
Buffalo.
Basically, huge shoulders, huge arms, somewhat of a huge torso, no legs. Hence the nickname.
Oh, yeah.
It appears as though in this guy's sentencing documents, there was a statement that, quote, this investigation focused in part on an unlawful gambling operation involving Paul Rogers and others. Rogers, the co-owner of the Smokehouse Tobacco, located in Waterbury, a roll-your-own tobacco shop, pled guilty in January to one count of devising a scheme to bribe a public official, and 1 count of conspiring to make false statements to the Federal Elections Commission and impeding the enforcement of federal campaign finance laws. That's what Moffa pled to.
Okay.
Moffa was working with Rogers on not only placing bets, but he was also collecting for Mr. Rogers.
Well, if I was going to have somebody collecting for me, it would be a guy named Buffalo. I'll tell you that.
And it gives a whole new meaning to Mr. Rogers' neighborhood.
Oh, yeah. I want Buffalo collecting for me.
It's a beautiful 2 for 1 for me. A beautiful 2 for 1. Won't you be mine?
Anybody want to book a bird cage?
I've got OTB too. It's all good. You know, Moffa was supposed to be sentenced yesterday, but that sentencing has been continued to June 3rd. And that's in part because apparently 4 guys who got arrested in the Donovan probe are still going to possibly go to trial.
Okay.
7 people were arrested. 3 have pled out. The handwriting's on the wall, guys.
Yeah.
Don't think you want to go to a jury on this one.
And no matter what, don't be the last one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do they all have separate counsel?
Yes.
Okay.
It was the investigation into Moffa's activities with Rogers that led to, hey, something's going on with the roll your own legislation. Rogers is part of that.
Huh.
Let's look into that. Which then led to the arrest of the campaign manager for Chris Donovan's congressional election bid. Oops.
Yeah, sorry.
So that also has morphed into an investigation on certain bonding issues that came out last week. Another oops.
Here's the thing with the illegal gambling activities. Do this stuff online, guys. They pay.
Not only do they pay,
they cut you a big fat check, and it's legal.
There isn't any legislation currently on the books
Not even close.
that would impact that.
No, not even close. It's 100% legal to my knowledge. Just jump online. No one would have ever figured any of this out.
Oops. This is why law enforcement prays that each perpetrator is as dumb as the ones they've already arrested. Now, last but not least, the man who would be governor,
Mm-hmm.
the man who ran in 2010 as the Republican nominee, a fellow by the name of Tom Foley. Tom Foley is a venture capitalist.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, his job resembles the job of a former venture capitalist who ran for president, a fellow by the name of Mitt Romney.
Mm-hmm.
Tom was in front of the legislature's Government Administrations and Elections Committee yesterday.
Okay.
And he testified for an hour. Now, normally, I would think that you could get most of what you wanted to say out in, 5 minutes.
Sure.
And maybe the legislative types would want to ask me some questions, and that could take 15 minutes. Tom was there for an hour. Now, a good portion of that was answering questions by the legislators there.
Or talking to his lawyer and saying, "Can I answer this right now?
No.
Should I answer this?"
He should have had his lawyer. He should
No
have
lawyer?
had he should have had his campaign manager.
How is somebody? There's nobody sitting there with him by himself.
No, he was there by himself.
Oh, that's crazy.
Tom testified.
You are allowed to have counsel present, correct?
Well, yeah, but he was
Just anything in
he
general.
was testifying in favor of creating a law
Yeah.
that would basically make the activity of at least half the legislature, both the House and the Senate, illegal. Calling existing laws controlling conflicts of interest in state government absurd, and that's a quote,
Mm-hmm.
and likening their impact to, quote, foxes guarding the hen house, end quote. Yeah, he actually said that. The critique earned Foley a sharp rebuke from members of his own party. Foley's hour-long testimony is a strong indication that he would like to run for office again in 2014. He has actually stated on Meet the State with Dennis House that he would like to run for governor. He just hasn't filed the formal paperwork for it yet.
Okay.
Said Foley in his testimony, quote, "In most states and Washington, D.C., a legislator could go to jail for what is regularly done and perfectly legal here in Connecticut. That's because what is regularly done in our capital is considered a bribe in most places."
Nice.
End quote.
How to win friends and influence people.
Foley seemingly took pot shots at both the governor. Malloy's wife, Kathy, is the CEO of Greater Hartford Arts Council, which receives grants from the state, and Minority Leader Larry Cafaro. Cafaro's law firm, for which he is a partner, Brown Rudnick, lobbies the legislature. Cafaro will likely contest the Republican gubernatorial race with Foley in 2014. State Representative Rosa Rabimbas, Republican Naugatuck, took the remarks personally and objected to being likened to a hen in a hen house. Rosa, baby, I feel your pain. I am with you in spirit. Representative David Labriola, Republican of Oxford, who also happens to be the Republican state chair, brother. Yeah, Jerry Labriola is his brother.
Okay.
Also forcefully stated that Foley's remarks were not appreciated, nor were they helpful. Tune in more, folks, because it's only going to get better.
I was going to say, the gloves aren't even untied yet. They're not coming off for a little while. This is fun.
Said Labriola, I get the fact that this is a coming election period. I get the fact that he's interested in running. But really, this wasn't helpful. Oh, my. Well, I don't know. Any thoughts?
On any particular topics?
Foley.
No. I got nothing for you. It's funny. I love this stuff. We are, what are we, 2 full years away from election time? Come on, boys. You got to step up your game. That's nothing.
We're actually a year and 3/4 away from actual election time. We're about a year away from, we're about 9 months from inauguration.
Okay.
Yeah. This is not kindergarten. This is not elementary school, folks. It's time to get, if you're going to get serious, do yourself a favor, form your campaign committee, get the paperwork filed.
Get the paperwork in. If the paperwork's not even in, why even bother?
Well, that's because what they're doing is trying to gin up the finances without formally having to report on the finances.
Okay.
That's perhaps a little loophole that we should be tying up nice and tight. If you announce that you're going to run, then you have X number of days to actually form the committee.
Okay.
And you then have X number of days to report what kind of financing.
What your money is.
Otherwise, sit down and shut up.
Agreed.
You know? And frankly, what Foley did was no service to his future campaign because he made himself look just like Mitt Romney. And Mitt Romney didn't lose just because of the Republican platform, although there is some strong evidence that supports how, in general, folks didn't like the presidential campaign platform. But they also didn't like him.
Just didn't like him.
Because he did not appear as though he was a man of the people and did not appear as though he really cared what Joe Sixpack really cares about.
There just didn't seem to be any genuine anything. Just being genuine. It all seemed forced.
And with Foley, he's coming across somewhat like an automaton, a robot, and not really. He's analyzing things. He's dealing like Spockian logic. This is how we should live long and prosper,
Yes.
without any real connection to the people who are supposed to, hopefully, in his mind, elect him. That's not a recipe for success.
No.
Just saying. Well, it's been another week. I know. The hour has gone quickly, hasn't it?
It did. It flew by tonight.
You've been joining us tonight on onthehorn.com. You can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. There's probably other things that are now out that I have absolutely no idea.
Are you guys on Stitcher? Is this on Stitcher too or no?
I don't know.
Okay.
We'll have to ask Brian about
Yeah.
that. But you can follow us on the usuals, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. You've been listening to News Talk Tonight. I'm Dave Moore, your host. Been joined by co-host Brian Lee and special co-host Brian Parker on the phone. We're brought to you by Amazon.com, Gateway Financial Partners, Sandus Travel, Sherpa Technologies, Budweiser Meyer Jack CPAs, Deepwater Seafood of Avon, and CentralCTDental.com. We'll be back next week. Please listen in. In the meantime, stay safe.
On the horn. onthehorn.com.